the intro, Sunil and I are so excited to be back with you guys, to be honest. Like, we didn't know we would have such an overwhelming response to our first episode. It's something that him and I had been talking about for a while now, connecting on identity, given that I at least consider myself an advocate of identity, given that I think it should be made into a much more mainstream discussion in terms of us embracing our best selves. And of course, the core of identity has always, or at least one of the main subsets of identity, has always been gender. And this is something that Sunil has embodied the rights for as long as I can remember, and probably the one person I know who has truly made impact and made change at the grassroots level as well as the policy level in this space. So last time was a huge roaring success, and I had a bunch of you guys reach out to me and to Sunil asking for episode 2. So when we heard that, you know, we're going back into lockdown, we're like, okay, let us find our Insta family again and give you guys the rest of the story, because last time we could barely scratch the surface. So I'm going to go ahead and invite Sunil now. And he has been waiting with bated breath, I know. But Sunil, I had to introduction and get the internet correct before I could invite you onto our Insta Live. And yes, I am not a Karthik. I try to be a leopard. Hey!
Yes. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I can hear you.
Okay,
and I have missed you, and you would not believe I fell asleep on my terrace, and I
heard your story.
Well,
Well, today I was so sure I would fall asleep, so I didn't sleep. So kind of watching, catching up. So I didn't sleep in the afternoon. So I wanted to be ready. So just took a shower and I came.
And you are, and you look like $1,000,000, which is you, as always. And, you know, it's always a tough act to follow. So besides the Amy Winehouse look, I hope I'm ready. And I've been telling everyone that we did not expect such an overwhelming response from the last time we chatted, and that there's been such an outpouring of love for you and for me and for our magic, which I think both of us were very excited about. And in fact, a lot of the people who were looking for, when are you going to be talking to Sunil sir again? I said, Sunil sir has to pick up the phone. No for that. So
hey, now at least you can't blame my connection. We have a decent connection. Fingers crossed. Yeah.
I'm just waiting for a few more people to join before we jump in. So I just wanted to, guys, let me tell you, Sunil and I have been chatting all week about bringing you episode 2 and then 3 and 4 and so on, because it turns out that there's quite a lot to dig into. And let me tell you, I've been moved by him for years now, so I guess I'm not a newbie to this, but I wanted you all to share in this story. So Sunil, I think we've hit about a good, nice 15 plus. Love it, you guys. I'm glad. You know, this is not bad for ISC.
I think we should just dive right in before, get to the meat of the matter.
Right. So yes. So I think we can go ahead and get started. So Sunil and I were talking about, we had left a lot unsaid the last time we had chatted. So, and I know that one of the things that you had said, which I was intrigued by and I wanted to pursue, but we had touched so many different subjects that I wanted to get you all to myself and to, of course, our viewers to talk about, the aspect of families, identity, gender, coming out, and what goes on. So could you think that, you could, I know it's a space, it's definitely a very deep space.
Extremely emotional experiences that in, the nearly 30 years of my work as an activist and counselor, where a lot of people have got in touch and have tried to, help them in whatever way we could as a community and as a support group. So family has always been the main stumbling block, in the life of an LGBT child as she grapples with identity, with the whole gender expression, not even understanding why they're behaving the way they're behaving, or why they like to behave a certain way or like a certain thing, and all these societal norms of how a boy or a girl should behave, and then when that's imposed on these children and the parents don't understand, and then they force these kids to lead a life that is not their truth. And there's at a very young age, it manifests in various levels. Sometimes children are beaten up really badly. Sometimes they're not given food. They forced into like a NCC or a military kind of lifestyle where they let's man this boy up, or this girl is not feminine enough and stuff like that. So when these mindsets are there, it's very hard to reach out to this to the children. Especially, we have a legal clause. So Sahodran as an NGO, as a support group, we cannot work with children below the age of 18.
Really?
Because then we basically don't want to get into legal hassles with families, throwing cases at us. So most of the cases that we've dealt with are over the telephone, on the internet, people who've got in touch with us, and we're not very sure about the age, but then the fact is that at least they could pick up a phone and call us and talk.
Because a lot of this starts happening much before 18, no? Doesn't this
12, 13, that's when you're coming into your teens. It's pubescent, the age when you're coming to terms with your sexuality. You understand your body's going through all these changes. The hormones are out there, and you just don't understand. And you're a young boy and girl, so there's no guidance at that point. The parents are clueless. So let's give them that due, that they're clueless. They have no idea how to handle it. And it's so, because I was talking last night to a friend of mine, and he was saying how he saw this little his best friend's son was playing with his neighbor, and these two boys were playing. And what happened was, the neighbor's son had bangles on, loved to wear lipstick, and they was 8 or 9 years old, 7, 8, that young. And constantly the parents, they were so embarrassed that the little boy loved to dance, while his elder brother would go play cricket and football. This one loved dance. He'd watch television and he'd be reenacting the scene, dancing just by watching the television. And this boy was so talented, lovely, amazing child. And my friend said his heart just broke. He said, how to reach out to this little child because he was gay. And the fact is, if he did, then the parents would say, you're gay, so you're going to make my child gay, So it was horrible. It was horrifying for him to see. And the best part is, his friend's son, the little fellow, just saw him as a buddy. He didn't discriminate. There was no discrimination between the friends. They were just having fun, And the little fellow didn't realize that his buddy was behaving not like a boy, And
too young to
and the child apparently is brilliant in school, studies really well. He gets involved in all these extracurricular activities, and I think he's 8 years now. But my friends lost touch because their families moved away from.
But this situation is going to turn out well, is what I'm assuming.
No. The elder brother constantly corrects the younger brother, says you're an embarrassment. They may call him names, and it's very difficult. So the parents are clueless. They don't know how. They're very working class, simple people in a village in Kerala. So they really don't know how to deal with it. So it was that situation when a 7-year-old boy picks up a lipstick and puts it on and loves to wear bangles and dance. How to tell that boy it's not right to do? That's not the right thing to do. So what we've had is, in the horror stories that we've had, is 2 cases that come to my mind immediately are where conversion therapy. So this is conversion therapy is something that I don't think it's as extreme as it is in the West, where you have Christian organizations having.
I want to actually mention something over here, because I recently, since we've all been in lockdown and Netflix, I do ration 45 minutes of Netflix in the night. I watched this, and I'm a Russell Crowe fan. I do love his choice of movies. So I saw a movie called Boy Erased, where Russell Crowe plays the father's role of a pastor. And the boy is, sort of, while he's growing up in his mid-teens, starts having, sort of tendencies towards towards the same sex. And his father the pastor sends him to conversion therapy. And the movie just it just made my skin and my guts go inside out, what he experienced at that institution and what happened to some of the other kids, and suicide, and would you like to shed some light on that kind of
So
thing?
my question is, how is it legal? When homosexuality has been removed as early as in the 70s, where it's removed from the psychiatric, as a psychiatric ailment or issue, and it
Right.
is accepted, how do the governments still allow these doctors and medical institutions to carry out so-called conversion therapies where they give them treatment? So
What
one of the
India, Sunil? I want
in
example.
India, okay, this is like a very crude thing that happened. I remember one of my trans friends, she was locked up in a room for a week in complete darkness. Food was kept outside. She was in a cell, like literally like a prison cell, complete darkness. So 10 days, I think. And then food was kept outside her door. She was given medication to sleep through the day. She was drugged. And then at the end of a week, she was told, if you don't cut your hair, if you don't behave like a boy, and if you don't agree, we will not let you come out. So then she agreed. And she said, okay, I want to get out. And then you go into a dorm system, a system where you're treated like a prisoner. So 8 o'clock, the bell goes, you go, you're given a plate, you go stand in a queue, terrible food is dished out to you. And all this while, you're in a complete haze. She said she had no clue what day she was on, how long she stayed there. And it is only because she said one of the wardens in that hospital. So basically, it's a de-addiction center they sent her to. They didn't know where else to send her. The parents were clueless. They sent her to a de-addiction center. And this is in Chennai, by the way. They sent her there. So because the warden realized what they were doing was wrong, stopped giving her the medication, pretended to be giving her the medication, stopped giving her the medication so she could get more clarity and become more normal, and
Yeah.
let her escape. Now she escaped. I think because of the trans community and the negative image of the trans community, the family lashed out at the community saying, "You converted my boy, you changed him and made him trans," and all that huge drama happened. It to the point that this trans person, who was still then a boy, final year engineering student, went to the only son. So that was the whole problem. Only son in the family. Went to court himself, filed a case against his parents, saying, I'm an adult. I know exactly what I'm doing. I'm trans. This is the life I'm leading. And my parents have done this to me. Filed a case and won it.
Won the case?
Yes, because in the end, the judge understood and said, listen, I can't, give you custody of your son because he's an adult and he's independent, free to do what he wants.
Wow.
So this was a success story. In a way, she lived to tell the tale and she's gone on to do brilliant things after that. The second trans case was where she was, again, similar. She said it was like a military thing, like you're in jail, put in there, given medication. They just numb you.
So they
you have no
spirit, is it?
Absolutely. Yeah. So that you finally give in and say, okay, I will, I think there's a scene in Boys Erased where one of the boys tells him, you just have to act the part.
Yes.
To get out of it.
Yes.
That hit me so hard. I was in tears when I saw that scene. So this is what she did. She acted the part. She cut her hair. She agreed and went back home, went back to living with her family and all that. And then one fine day just ran away.
Oh my God.
To a different city and then got her surgery done and then came back as trans.
Okay,
so it was.
I have a burning question. Like, how do they manage to, like, these surgeries? I'm just curious. Are these expensive? Like, how do they manage to get this on their own without family support? Like, I'm curious about that. Like, how?
So obviously they have to save up money. So all they do is they kind of save up money from home or wherever, whatever small jobs that they're doing, they save that money and they go to a place where earlier on, let me be very honest, it was non-medical staff doing the surgery because it was not legal. Okay, that's a different story, or that's a different talk.
That's
I
a
mean, section.
okay. I'm
It's,
making notes
it's
of.
that's horrendous. Okay, so where a lot of people have died on the table. We've lost, people there. Anyway,
Oh,
so she lived to tell the tale. She came back. So depending on the amount of money that you have, you can go to a plastic surgeon, get a vaginoplasty. It's called a sex reassignment surgery, where the male genitalia are converted into female genitalia, and you look and feel like a woman. So, you know, that process. There are doctors who are specialized in it. I think Bangalore is an option. Cochin, now doctors are doing it. So because it's become legal, government is supporting the trans community and going out and say, instead of you running away to some quack and getting it done butchered, and
yeah.
you're not going to, you don't even know if you'll survive, because we've heard there are horror stories from all
I
these
mean,
places.
yesteryears of abortion when it wasn't even a thing, when they used to
It
watch.
was, yeah. If you, in fact, this is something also. So my YouTube channel, where I started Earth and Soul, my very first interview was
Yes.
up with Sabita, and if you hear her interview, she will tell you what she went through. Her surgery. It was gruesome, to say the least. Anyway, I will not go into it, so that's
Yes,
for people
we're
to
going to
go.
keep that for episode 3, but I wanted you to go to the second
That's a
story. I
huge
know.
area of. It's like horror stories.
Which is why I have my notes. So I'm
Okay.
being very diligent.
So why I wanted to do this session today specifically is that what we really need to do is educate and sensitize families. What you're doing is you're pushing your child away. They run away from home, and they get in really critical, vulnerable situations, which will not happen if the parents were with the child. Sorry, with the child.
So
You know,
can we go a little bit more, because we were talking about medical intervention, religious intervention. Can we, because you were going to tell me a few more stories about that. So that's kind
yeah.
of.
There's another one where the boy was put in a mental institution, a hospital that treats mental issues. Well, that again was with a religious institution again. It was more like a mental asylum where people are treated, shock treatment, given medicine. I don't know what medication was, but shock treatment was one of the regular things that they did. And then we had to intervene as activists. A lot of us got together. This happened in Kerala. Had to call the hospital.
In one religion over another, or does this happen aggressively across religious practices? I'm just.
It happens. It all depends on the family. So the stories that I've told you now, the two trans stories were a different religion. The boy who went to an organization, the hospital, and was supposed to be given electric shock treatment, was a different religion. So yeah, mostly it's a mix of religions. You really can't say.
About the one that you said ran away, who faked it till he made it, or faked it till she made it, and then ran away, and you said had a reassignment, and then you were about to continue on that one.
So, and then she came back to Chennai, okay? And no, so she came back and lived on her own with her friends, and then she started working in our group support group. So this is a personal story for us because we know her. I don't want to mention her name. So yeah, so these are very personal stories, and so the least we could do is give her a space, something to some sort of income. So we enrolled her in the NGO because she was qualified. She was an extremely intelligent person, So it's not like we just randomly this sob story, terrible story. Let's help. We can't do that. There's so many.
Right.
This was somebody who was visiting Sahodran regularly. This is somebody we knew personally. So then it was easier for us to follow that story, follow it through, give her the care, require the support she required.
I don't want to use the word patient. So, but this person is what, a client? Is somebody you're helping? I mean, what is the term?
No. So we call them drop-ins. So people come into the center. We have a recreational space in Sahodran where you can play games, cards, whatever, read a lot of magazines. the television to watch. So it's a fun space. You can do whatever you want. To be silly, be girly, dress up, do whatever. This is your safe space because everybody is from the community. So
And
nobody can point a finger at you and say, "Oh, you're so girly."
do you feel like that's what they really need to do? Do you see a lot of that they really need to come and be able to just,
So like this little boy, this 7, 8 year old boy wanted to wear bangles. I even now, like yesterday, I was talking to my friend. I'm just in panic mode. I'm like thinking like, hopefully this boy is okay. I'm asking my friend, is there some way you can track that family down and see somehow let's treat people. So what we've done in Sahodran is we've allied with with a small NGO that specifically does counseling, and it's a straight woman who's doing it. So we have a neutral person doing the counseling because then it's not like, oh, you're gay or you're LGBT, so you want our children to become LGBT.
Yeah,
that's our thing. So we're not doing that. We are getting a regular trained counselor. She's worked with the De-Addiction Center for TTK, for Alcoholics Anonymous, and she's worked with the Tamil Nadu state government on HIV/AIDS work. So she's an extremely experienced woman. She knows how to handle various issues, right, from marriage counseling to addiction to gender. So we use her services. So she does the intervention for us to deal with the family. And we've had successes like that. So it's only when people come to us can we help them. So if the individual...
can you tell me about a time when you've seen the families win? Because I feel like more often than not, the families win, right? This battle?
Yes. No. So what happens is, a lot of times the families will not buy into your story. Even if it is a woman talking to them, they will say, Ninglela, you're from this field, this is what you're doing. It's like a job. So, they don't buy your story. A lot of them, if they're very hardcore, orthodox, conservative background, for them to wrap their head around the fact that the child is LGBT, they have to accept it. They find it very hard, and so sometimes we have had success stories. I mean, it's very dramatic. I personally will not be seen in those meetings. We will initiate it and then we pull back because we don't want to be visibly seen. It will be just the individual with her parents and the counselor. So it'll be a very small. But we're waiting outside. So in case anything, we need help. Because I remember once the mother fainted because she was not prepared to see her son as trans, and it was horrible. A lot of stories like that, which till date makes me so emotional. Sometimes stories are so hard to tell. It's extremely painful for me to even recount these stories. That's the thing. So when I saw Boy Raised, it's a film like I wish everybody can see, and see how, and especially when you see Russell Crowe as a very orthodox person coming from the church, and you understand where he's coming from, how heartbreaking it is. It is like, it's gut wrenching. I couldn't sit through that film. It's too close to us. Like, we've been through so much of that. I can only watch it in parts. I can't see the whole thing. So I take a break.
No, I completely agree with you because in my own journey of embracing identity, and with me, it was more in the context of embracing my face, or the aspects that I had to admit to having disability, and it wasn't I felt that I was above accepting those facts and whatever. I mean, and then I see that identity, and gender is so intrinsic. You know what I'm saying? And then
ingrained into us at a very young age. Boy like this, girl like this. That's it. So it's black and white.
Yeah. So when I felt like, I was on my own journey towards embracing identity, I would always feel so close to those struggling with gender, because it's identity at the end of the day. It's only one aspect. It's like a hand or a foot. It's all part of your body. So whenever I used to speak to you or speak to anyone else struggling, I used to somehow feel a very deep connection to, I still need to reach out and that last 10 meters between me and myself. I still hadn't crossed it for very, very many years, but I've made so many good LGBTQ relationships along the way. And I used to wonder, why do they understand me better than even my own people? You know what I mean? Because the struggle is
good point. All of us are caught up in our own journey. in our own explorations of who we are. Instead of allying with each other, that's the reason why I started Sahodaran. I just wanted to ally with everybody because I know how difficult it was. I was pre-internet era. I'm 55 years old. There was no resources for me, only books, newspapers and books. That was all I had. And I had to go to the library and read stuff. Any literature on LGBT came from the West. So again, it's seen as a Western concept. It's a Western construct. The communities that lived there, nothing was Indian or ethnic. That's the reason why I got into the research and started presenting papers and seeing where we came from, bring our story forward, and we'll see like how mythology can actually help you. Like if you look at the Hindu traditions, we have all these genders and all these fabulous mythological stories that showcase all genders, and it's out there. And the gods and goddesses, so we should feel proud, we are represented there. Even though minority, we still have space.
In Hinduism is what I heard. I don't know enough to comment. But...
So the one community, like how I mentioned last time, was the Native American Indians recognized 5 genders.
Wow.
So that's how plural they were and how open and fluid they were. That's why now people come up with, my sexuality is fluid, I'm gender fluid, and all these words are coming up. So for the common man, it's going to be super confusing. So let's go slowly right now.
Yeah.
And
no,
that's the thing.
I wanted to add something there. As you know that, I'm moving on to the next phase of my life and moving to Wharton, and it's coming up very soon. And now the pronouns are a huge part of the application process. So recently I connected and I was looking for roommates and whatever. And part of the discussion were the pronouns that they were using. So there were multiple
options.
Yeah. So, somebody wrote to me saying I would prefer to be called a they. Okay. So, I mean, and I'm fairly well educated, well exposed. Like I know this stuff, right? And I'm like, okay, how shall I, but it just shows that it's such a long way to go. But I do agree with you that, let's take this one step at a time since we are here in the now. And I wanted to kind of cover the medical and religious intervention and the forcing and the violence. And maybe if you could touch upon the possibility of like self-harm, because I know that just seems like the logical next step. Because what do you do when you're out of options and not being understood?
So, like you said, if you look at, if I look at the case studies that have come to us, there was one gentleman who came from Cochin, upper middle class, educated, very affluent family, marriageable age, very highly qualified, full lot of pressure to get married. And then he said, no, I'm not interested, They took him to a psychiatrist. And then he was given medication. So I really wanted to know what this medication was. What were they giving him? It must have been hormone pills. I have no idea what it was. Sometimes it's hormone pills, as simple as that. And then, so he spent a packet. In those days, he said he spent close to 1 lakh of rupees, which is huge.
Back then,
yeah. And then he got married. Cut to 1.5 years later, he calls me and he says, it's over. He said, I couldn't live through. I said, you spoiled one girl's life.
Right.
You've just messed it up for her. But hopefully she's understanding of what he went through and what his family put through. And he was so repentful. And, he was saying at that point, because he reached out from Kerala, and he said, because there was no support group in Kerala at that time. And he said, if only there were support groups like this more visible, that we could reach out to. Because he went online and he found me and then he called me. The damage was done. Everything was over. But when I heard that story, that was purely, and it's interesting because I would think you come from an very educated, upper class background where you're exposed to things like this. The families would be more accepting, But somehow,
yeah.
But then I think also like in the case of one of the trans persons, she was the only son. So the heir to the property. They were well off, affluent, heir to the property, to the business or whatever. And then now suddenly the son turns out to be trans. They could not accept it at all. And that's the reason why they tried to put her through all these torturous methods of, brainwashing her and torturing her so that she would come out and say, okay, and just give in, because you don't have the strength to fight back.
When it comes to families, because, like since we started off saying that the biggest stumbling block is them, and I find this very, very interesting because I think that families, I mean, it's difficult. So tell me, so when it comes to the difference between being gay or lesbian or going the trans route, would you say that being, identifying as gay or lesbian is a little bit easier than, say, maybe trans? I mean, would that be higher on the dramatic scale? Could you?
Yeah, true. Because trans is just going right across, right? So I've only spoken of trans women. You can imagine how difficult it is for trans men, for women to become men. So that's worse.
Yes.
It's yeah. So we've met. So I don't have in-depth stories to tell about trans men yet. So because that's a more recent what do you call it? Community that we've come in contact with and who come to us to access them and to give them help, and support. So the trans men community is more nascent compared to the trans women. Historically, we are there. Mythologically, we are there. If you look at the Hindu mythology, trans women have been there from time immemorial. They had an exalted place in society as courtesans, as nautch girls, as
What girls?
Nautch girls, they were called, the dancers. Nautch girls are the dancers. Dance in a court. You can dance in a court. You can dance in a temple. Like you have the Devdasi system and all that. So this is traditional. They have traditional roles to play, and so then I think all that could really, it's the British coming into India and criminalizing them, and made the trans community criminal. So this is where we lost whatever tradition we had of being open-minded and a liberal, accepting community. And suddenly we got this Victorian sense of what was right and wrong and guilty and sin and all that, the baggage that came with it. So when you see some of the cases, I have to admit, have been the most problematic cases have been kids coming from a Christian background, because the church, those are heavily into the church and the Bible, and they keep quoting from the Bible saying it's not right and all that. Boy raised is all about that. The religion is out there.
That's why I was pushing you.
Yeah.
I couldn't bear it. I had to get it out of my system.
So, end of the day, it all boils down to the family, the kind of background that they have, and the support system that they have. So, a lot of them, even however educated you are and how well off you are, at the end of the day, if your child is going to cross over male to female, female to male, it's complete chaos. It's like a disaster waiting to happen, because for them to just, therapy is required for everybody.
That is for
you
sure.
Have to reach out.
Sure.
You have to sit down with the whole family and make them understand what is this child going through. No child would voluntarily do this to themselves.
No.
If somebody is going to say, this is who I am, and if I want to live my truth, and I despise the body that I'm born in, you have to listen to them, right? Nobody's going to make this up. Nobody wants to live a life of being criminalized and harassed and ridiculed and sexually abused. Nobody chooses that life. So nobody would choose to be trans. In fact, a lot of people live in fear. I'm sure there are a lot of people who didn't become trans because of that.
I'm sure.
Just the fear.
I have a question, and this I've been wanting to ask, and I know, please indulge me if this is. Did you, while growing up, ever have any kind of resistance sent in your direction, either religious, medical, anything, or did they all just embrace it? Like, what kind of evolved family did you come from then?
I do evolve. It's just that my family, I have a very loving family, and this has accepted me the way I am, as long as there was no label to it and I didn't talk about it. My activism became a little That's when people became a little uncomfortable. But then when I proved myself, and now there's so much respect that they admire and respect the work that I've done because nobody
And
did it before me, and I
fan
stuck my neck
clubs
out.
talking to you and families thanking you for peace, and it's just no, I do, but I do see your point. So but definitely that way, the grassroots work, the academic background, having actually done the work, which kind of loops back into our episode 1 if you think about it, having done the work that it takes to actually create change, I think that's what's given a lot of credibility and weight to who you are and what you've done. So you feel like your journey. So I would definitely say that you're definitely like a light that has traveled ahead of a
Full
lot of the
credit
rest
goes to
of
my
us.
family for just being there. No, the thing is, they just let me be. They didn't ask too many questions. They didn't interfere with what I was doing. They weren't sure. They weren't very clear about what my path was, but they let me be.
What
That
about
is half the battle won.
see? I know that men. See, for men, this is women. Still, it's okay. You know what I'm saying? Like, how did your dad deal with it? I mean, sorry, Mister. Sorry, sort of. I'm sorry, like to ask like this, but for men, it's difficult. So I do you mind talking
Yeah,
about
so
that?
initially he didn't understand. Of course, the thing is, the age difference between me and my father is like 40 plus years. So I feel he's like in not just one generation, it's two generations away from
Would you,
me.
would you
So for
want that?
him to grapple with what I'm going through. But he accepted me. And it was unconditional love from both my parents. They just accepted me. And I think the fact that I was qualified, I was educated, and I was doing work that took me places, and people were talking so highly of me. I was constantly in the media talking about these issues. I'm sure a lot of it is very gray and murky in their minds because they didn't really get what it was. They're just happy for me because I was happy, you know? And that is the biggest blessing any child can ask for. That if
Yeah.
your parents can just see the happiness of the child in what he or she is doing, just let them blossom and grow into their own truth and be themselves, there is no greater joy for a parent. And I think I'm extremely blessed today. And that's the reason I keep saying that, because I owe everything to my parents. Looking at all the horror stories around, I don't have a reason to complain at all. I have seen my friends go through nightmare situations, really scary situations where, there had to be so many interventions. People had to come and mediate and speak. They would run away. They would be living in some bus stand, just sleeping on the roads, just running away, trying to go to another city. A lot of them migrate, get caught up in in activities that they didn't want to be involved in, but then they had no choice.
Do you
And
feel that they get forced into the sex trade because because they uh, they realize that they want to transition early on, but they are not yet qualified to do so, and that
earlier on, they didn't have a choice. Earlier on, there was absolutely no choice. So the sex work gave them the money to go save up for their surgery.
yes, that's what I was that was exactly what I was getting to.
And then you see the thing is in the trans community, you get adopted into a trans community. So there's a matriarchal clan, one particular clan, and there's a mother, there's a grandmother, their aunts, their sisters. So they all look out for you, and you fit
Oh,
into
it's
that family.
a full family structure, like you all like they live together and
It's
stuff.
completely women. So you create your links. So and you have duties to do carry out. Like so, when Diwali, some festival comes like Diwali comes, the daughter will have to go with nice silk saris and give the gifts to the older people in the family, and the bond is strengthened with all these give and take going back and forth and then reinforcing the bond that they're part of this family. That's the only survival mechanism that they could come up with, you
And does
know
that still exist today? Is it still very much
now
there?
it's a lot more relaxed. It was very rigid earlier. It was very autocratic and rigid to an extent where uh, some people tried to run away and they couldn't. They wanted to opt out and they couldn't because so much money was invested in them, and then all that. So it was difficult earlier on. So it was very stressful. The environment that they lived in was extremely stressful. Alcohol and substance abuse is so high. And it's painful for me because I see amazingly intelligent and artistic individuals in the community were so talented, but they're not able to fulfill their potential, you know, because by the time everything is just one haze, you know, for them survival, day-to-day survival is like, you know, Savita said that in her interview. She said, when I set out every night, I pray that I come back alive, broken,
Yeah.
completely.
That's a lot.
Yeah. So, you know, for us to sit here and judge them saying, and it hurts me when people say, oh, they're sex workers and terrible people and all that. You have no idea what they're going through. You have no idea what their lives are about. And for us to sit here, because that's why I said I'm so blessed. I have all this. If I didn't have all this, I don't know what my life would have been. I'm scared to think, you know, the number of people who've died, who ended their lives, you know, or they've had untimely deaths because of other accidents that have happened. It's it's horrible. So for me, I'm carrying. So every time, sometimes it's hard for me to talk about certain stories because I still haven't. There's been no closure for me. Sometimes it's just so heavy. It just sits there new, and every time an interview comes and they open up, like last night, I was in tears. I couldn't talk to my friend, you know, because this is the topic that he said, this is what we have to talk about. And he was so excited. He said, good, Sunil, this is what you need to concentrate on. And I said, this is what I'm doing. Anjali and I just going to talk about families. If the families don't hang on to their children, you've lost them. And, you know, imagine the mental erosion, that the psychological erosion of the mind, that they've come to a point that they're numb. How do you rehab? And then we use huge words, rehabilitate. Let's give them work. Let's do this. Sunil, send trans people. We want to give them equal opportunities and employment. They are broken. They are so worn out. How do you pick up an individual who's seen the worst that, you know, if Sabita can say that, and she said that in the interview, you see it. She says it so matter of fact. You know, I was behind the camera. I had to control myself. And Abe was my cameraman. He just froze. She just said it so, it was stoic, very matter of fact. This is how they are. And I have only admiration for them, that they have survived, overcome all these obstacles. And Savita's story is, again, she was forced, she went to a seminary because she came from a Christian background. She thought by living in becoming a priest, she won't get forced into a marriage because she was feminine. But right. In the seminary, a senior priest sees her and calls the congregation and says, this boy should not be here because he's going to spoil all the other boys. And was asked to leave. Yes. You have to hear her, that interview. You will be in tears if you see that interview of Savita. It is just so heartbreaking. And that is just one story. Why do you think, you know, this is so important for me, that these stories have to reach out to people? We sit in judgment because we have all the creature comforts and we have everybody. There's so much to rely on, to fall back on, you know? And that's the reason why my whole, you know, need to do this Earth and Soul channel was that I just wanted to put these stories out there so that somewhere down the line, if it changes somebody's mind, it's like a blessing for me.
No, absolutely. You know? In fact, I wanted to tell everyone who's following us on this Insta Live chat that Sunil's birthday had passed right after our last chat together, and him and I started on the phone. But
55.
So
I'm 55. 55.
But not a day older than 25, I'll tell you that. So the day, in fact, the day after his birthday was when you launched Earth and Soul, which, so I have seen clips of the Savita interview. And
it's in summary, so that's a limitation. I need to get subtitles done. So it's a work in progress. I just put it out there because I wanted people to see it.
The treatment looked wonderful. In fact, I was hoping, and I'm glad that, you know, because we wanted to start taking questions at this time. Guys, whoever has been following us so far, I know this is very gut-wrenching. I had given everyone a clue that our series is not going to be easy, but it's going to be extremely necessary. Not just for him or me or for those in the community, but anyone struggling with identity, just knowing that we all have a journey, we all have a story, and this is one of those examples of the highest, if not the absolute levels of difficulty that I think, because family is so integral to our Indian culture. We're not like the West ki like chodo theek hai, I move out at 18 and then I don't know you.
Correct.
Here it's everything.
Till we die, family is part of your life till the end. You can't stereotype.
And I think that that's why it's so hard for us. Like, and from the stories you're telling me, it's so hard for us to separate ourselves, because I always I've been through so much, in my relationship with my family and especially with my father is very strong. So everything I do, I see reflected in his eyes and what his opinion of it might be. Now, in some ways that is a strength, and in some ways that is a weakness, because it's very hard to extricate and then say, this is who I am as an individual, because me and him are part of the same soul, but I have to walk a different journey now. You know what I'm saying? And he's not going to be around for all.
It's his ambition for you, his aspiration for you to be that person, to fulfill your potential. So he's pushing you,
I think
because he sees that in you. He sees that in you, and he doesn't want you to give up. He's there pushing you, and it's a blessing to have somebody like that. It's tough. I know all of us. A parent-child relationship is never easy, even if it's like a regular parent-child relationship. So it's 10 times more difficult for LGBT children to come around and deal with it. It's not the dealing with the self; it's the dealing with the parent. It's like that voice tells Russell Crowe, I'm not the one who needs to change. You are the one who needs to change.
And I cannot even imagine, even on a small issue, saying this to my parents. So I can't imagine how difficult it must be for them, for someone who's so fundamentally. So guys, whoever's on the chat, now would be a good time to ask your questions. But Sunil, I wanted to sort of dive deeper in our next session into there are two aspects, which, there's obviously a whole lot more, but definitely I've seen like moms sort of playing this protector role, but from the inevitable, which is the father, and eventually it does end up blowing up in some very violent fashion.
Because, what we do is we threaten the patriarchal system. Gender, as gender non-conforming individuals, we threaten the very patriarchal system that this whole social fabric is based on, that men are the supreme power. So if you challenge that, it is so unnerving for them that they want to squash you. They don't want to let you thrive. You don't want you to let you be, because they're insecure. And it is that insecurity that you see so much of violence. If you look at men beating up women, become alcoholic and beating up their women and whatever, all the violence that you see that are perpetrated by men is insecurity, because somehow they feel lesser, and we are challenging that. So in a way, LGBT is saying that we want to live our truth, and this is who we are. And it is not about black and white. There are a lot of grays in between, and that's something you have to accept. And that is why
with the trans community, because it's so obvious, like you said, the bangles and the lipstick. I try to, I don't plan to become a parent, but I wonder what I would say or do if that were the situation. And would I be okay? You know what I'm saying? It's always easy when it happens to somebody else, right?
That is why you should see the Bima jewelry ad, which is short.
I did.
I had tears. Tears.
Can you imagine? I'm a big follower of Sushant Digvikar. So it's Rani. I think his alter ego is called Rani Kohinoor. I don't know if you followed him. He was the first Mr. Gay India. His name is Sushant. He's huge on Instagram, and I've been a big follower of his, and I do enjoy his work. And the reason I started following him is because in a Saregama competition, when he was first sort of embracing his trans identity, he sang the same song in the male tone and in the female tone with a few seconds in between. So I've never seen such voice range in my life. So I was amazed.
We have singers like that in our office also.
Really?
We do that in our program. Yes. We have amazing singers, and they sing in orchestras. So these small temple festivals during Adi Masam, these small temples have festivals. So a little stage is makeshift stage. and one local band will play. And so this is where the trans people, some trans singers have gone and they sing male and female voices. So you know, they don't have to pay for a male singer, they don't have to pay for a female singer, they don't have to pay for two singers. They pay for one singer. It's work for them. So there are a lot of them who do both voices.
So I was
So it's not a
watching
new thing.
Sushant did a huge Alrani or whatever, put a huge shout out saying the Bima Jeweler ad is groundbreaking. So I immediately just switched to YouTube and saw it. And the treatment of that ad, and the girl who has done it is now also being very expressive on social media. And her recently, I don't know if you're up to date, but recently her Instagram was shut down, and because by Instagram because of sexual.
Really? I know. I saw something like that because I'm following her. Yes, yeah. There was some issue over there.
Yeah. She's obviously grappling with a lot. I don't want to, I don't know enough about it to judge, but I'm just saying she's grappling with.
I don't know what happened, so I can't say anything.
But this ad has obviously thrust her into the light, right? So there is a whole lot of attention, and now there's no normal theater and TV going on. So everything is OTT, everything is Insta Live, just like you and I right now. So luckily, when getting plays, and she's not just getting love. So, so she's lashing out like a 22-year-old would, and about transness and trans hate and trans.
We all went through that phase. We had all that energy, that spunk, and we had to fight. I've come to a point where I'm tired. I'm exhausted because the journey has been so tiring for me. And that's the reason why, it's when I talk more about it, it's emotional for me because, from where I came to where I'm now, I never dreamt that I would be talking like this to so many people and reaching out to so many people. And it's a blessing because from where I started to where India is right now, I am so proud. I'm so happy and I feel blessed because, I remember in 2000 when I was in San Francisco, I was at a CAPS Fogarty fellowship and I met a lot of Asian.
You even had you overtly overachieved. I'm giving me a complex right now. I thought I was the one who was intelligent.
No, it's not a big thing. Anyway, so I was there, and then I met a lot of Asian Indian LGBT people, and in the Bay Area, and they all said, "Why do you want to go back to India? Is it so difficult? It's like this, it's like that." I said, "No." I said, "I want to go back and fight for my." I want to be able to live in my own country the way I want to live. Why should I run away?
Which is one of the biggest things, because the only thing I have heard, and I'll tell you with somebody very close to me of an older generation, and I won't take names, recently was talking in reference to, a close friend who's from the community. And this person suggested, oh, why doesn't he go away to Canada? Like, that is the most obvious solution. And I'm like, you're not giving a solution, you're adding to the problem. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, this person thought that she was being sweet and supportive, which is wrong. You know what I'm saying? Do you see where the conundrum comes?
He basically wants a non-confrontational, peaceful kind of situation. So if she's not here,
that's what to say to that. So
I think that's what instigated me even more, because I remember a friend of mine saying, I was for my PhD program, he wanted me to come to Stanford. He said, "I will get you into Stanford." So I said, "No." I just panicked. I said, suddenly it was like everybody wanted me to stay back because I was part of there was a conference there for the South Asian community and all, and I was presenting a paper. So they said, "No, you should stay back." And this, and I said, "No, all the more reason why I have to go back home, because I had started, Southern was started in 1998. In 2000, I was in San Francisco presenting a paper. In 2 years, I can't just abandon the community and come back just because I got the opportunity to travel abroad, and that's happened earlier. I know activists who started and suddenly they get this opportunity to travel abroad and they don't come back.
But those are your value systems, and that's why I admire you so much. But I do have to take comments now, Sunil. You have lots of people to ask you questions. So the wicked one, I do not know who the wicked one is unless you know who she is. But she says she's applauding you and saying we need more people like you to talk. I agree with you, the wicked one. You don't look wicked, you look beautiful. So I will definitely get Sunil to come back in a few days once we've collected some of the feedback from you guys of this session. And the thing is, when we talk is when the other deeper subjects come out. And I'm identifying on so many levels, and especially I think the family aspect needs a lot more deeper digging. Incarnate says Sunil sir is a wonderful human being. I agree with him. Minal Kripalani, Minal, darling, I wanted to
I
say hi here, but but the
I
thing
saw
is,
Stefan and Gopal also. I should say hi to them. I think
yeah,
I saw them.
hi to them, Minal. No, I would love to, because the thing is, when I take comments in the middle, you also get derailed and you go off into one direction. So I need to
Mm.
moderate and keep you on course. So this is what we discussed last night, and I'm glad you've
I
stuck to
know.
it.
I get sidetracked. Yeah.
We had a few moments where the train went off the tracks, where I was just like, if you don't mind. So Preeti Jayachandran says hi. We've got a lot of Raji Anand, of course. I hope she's recovered from COVID. I heard she was unwell, so I hope she's feeling better. Wayne, of course, has been a huge supporter of yours and mine and whatever we've tried to do. Jishnu, Ravi, we have Sujit, we have lots of people. So, in fact, a lot of people had said hello and wanted to, and were very excited. Earlier, Priya Talur, or a lot of your baby girls from back in the day have, said hello. And I think we've done a wonderful job of kind of dipping into, the few stories that you had mentioned about mental health, mental intervention. But what I was hoping to get into the next time is the non-doctors doing these gender reassignment surgeries, given that you brought up the Bima jewelry ad, and that I heard that this girl transitioned, and by the next time I'll find out a little bit more. I have gone to her lives a couple of times, but found them a bit, after a while, a bit angry and a bit too
Aggressive.
aggressive. I mean, I'm just sort of, and this is not a judgment, this is just an observation. But I definitely wanted to dig into that perhaps with you next time, to kind of understand where that comes from, or is that a confluence of where we are at with social media and movies and activism now coming to the fore, and is it a lot of confusion, or are we in the right direction?
I'll unabashedly say I'm old fashioned and I'm from a different generation. And the way I work is very different. And the way the current generation is very smart in using social media, to put their views out, very forcefully. And I always feel that there has to be a common ground. We have to be a little sensitive when we approach subjects like that, because sometimes if you get too confrontational, it might just slap back in your face, So,
That is exactly what I thought, because see, at the end of the day, if Instagram shut you down, then the question is why. And then, I mean, at least, see, a dialogue at least leads to some resolution. A dialogue can, but confrontation doesn't. So, at the end, nobody wins. So that's kind of, and I definitely want like
a lot of energy lost, in that, and there's so much of anger and all that unresolved issues that happen. So you need to have a more calmer frame of mind when the thing is, let's be honest, we have a huge uphill task. There's this huge mindset that has to take time to change, and they have to unlearn whatever they know. So don't expect miracles to happen overnight just because the law changed. And the law changed only 3 years ago, and this is something we've been doing for 30 years. I think Ashok Rao has been doing it for 40 years or even more. I can't remember how long he's been doing it.
No, next time I want to go into, Sunil, also the way you cope with your emotions, because I always find that you have a sense of balance, sense of calm about you, a sense of acceptance. I do understand that the years of experience do help, but I mean, I've seen people with equal amount of years of experience and not much calm. So you know what I'm saying? How do you cope with that? How do you cope with that? Especially now you're in Kerala, you spend a lot of time, with your mom, you're alone, then, you come back to us. So there is a lot of time that you do spend.
I have to add this. Today, 4 peahens visited us. It was beautiful. They just traipsed through our backyard, and I was like, "Ooh, so pretty." I went running behind them with the phone, but